Hi, how is it going? Welcome to Code with Z. Today's problem is LeetCode number 17, letter combinations of a phone number. I'll fully explain the solution for this question in the coming slides, and then I'll visualize everything so I make sure you fully understand it. But for the sake of reading the question itself, let's actually analyze our examples that were given to us. So as you can see, in this question, we gotta map each number to a bunch of letters, and that's how old phone used to be. So if you were texting with an old phone and you wanted to type B, for example, you had to press 2. And that's what this question is asking us to do. So it's saying if you were given, for example, 23, because 2 represents A, B, C, and because 3 represents D, E, F, return all of the combinations that we can have. And as you can see, this is our result. And the logic behind it is because if we have A, we gotta match A with D, and then we gotta match it with E, and then we gotta match it with F. So as you can see, AD, AE, and AF, and then we're gonna move to B and we're gonna match it with D, and then we're gonna match it with E, and then we're gonna match it with F. And as you can see, BD, BE, BF, and so on and so forth. So as you saw, we're given a bunch of random digits and we gotta return all of the letter combinations that those two letters represent. So let's solve this together, and don't worry, I'll visualize everything. These slides took me ages to build, but I hope it provides you with value. So I think we can all agree that we need to return something, right? So let's have a result variable that we're gonna return, and we're going to initialize our result variable to an array that has an empty string in it. You're going to see why in a bit. I'm currently explaining the structure of our algorithm that we're going to use to solve the problem, and then we're going to visualize it and see how everything works. Don't worry, I won't finish the video until I make sure you fully understand how to solve this problem once and for all. So now that we have our result variable here, we're going to need a map or an object that has all of the letters that our numbers or digits represent. And this was given to us in that image that we saw. So 2 is representing A, B, C, and 3 is representing D, E, F, and so on and so forth. And if we're given 23, we got to return this result. So as you can see, AD, AD, AE, AE, AF, AF. And then we're going to move on to B. So BD, BD, then BE, BE, and then BF, BF. And same thing for C. So this is how we generated these combinations, but what should our algorithm be to generate this? I'm glad you asked. So let me tell you the structure of our algorithm, and then we're gonna get to the fun part, which is the visualization. So in our algorithm, we're gonna have a loop, and in this loop, we're gonna loop through each digit that we have. So we're gonna loop through our digits. So in the beginning, it's gonna be 2 and then 3. Inside of our loop, we're gonna get all of the letters that our digit represents. So for example, if we're looping through our digits here, and we're currently looping through 2, we're gonna get A, B, C, because those are the letters that our digit represent. So after we've gotten our letters, we're gonna have a temp variable, and that's gonna be initialized to an empty array. This is gonna hold temporary information that we might need, and you're gonna see how simple this whole thing is in a bit. And then after that, we're gonna have another loop, which is inside of our first loop. And inside of this inner loop, we're gonna define a variable called combination, and this is going to be basically equal to the first value in our result variable here. So whatever is inside of our result variable, we're going to remove it from our result and we're going to add it to our combination. So our combination is going to be equal to the first thing in our result variable. If some things seem a bit foggy, don't worry. Again, we have a visualization to take care of everything that you might not fully understand. And then we're going to have our last loop, and we're basically going to loop through each letter that we have. So we got our letters here, and then we're gonna loop through each letter that we have. So as you can see, we have 3 loops, and then inside of our last loop, we're gonna have this. We're gonna say, add our combination plus the letter that we're currently looping through to our temp array here. And this is everything that we have inside of our final loop. And at the end of our first loop, we're gonna say, result is equal to temp. This temp variable that we have here, we're gonna add some stuff to it here, and then we're going to assign that to result. So result is going to be equal to temp. And then at the end, we're going to return our result. Now let's visualize everything. So the first thing in our code is going to be this for loop, and we're going to loop through each digit, and these are our digits. And as you can see, our first digit is going to be 2 because we're looping through this number here. So now that we have our digit, we got to get all of the letters that our digit represents. And as you can see, 2 represents ABC. So let's do that. We're going to grab ABC, and letters are going to be equal to ABC. And then temp is going to be initialized to an empty array. And then we're going to get inside of our second loop. Inside of our second loop, we're saying combination is equal to take the first result item and remove it. All right, let's do that. So the first result item here is this empty string. So let's take that and we removed it from our result. So combination is equal to an empty string. And then we're going to enter our final loop, and we're going to loop through each letter that we have. So we're basically going to loop through A, B, C. So let's do that. In our first iteration, our letter is going to be A because we're looping through our letters and A is the first character. And then we're saying add combination plus letter to temp. So let's do that. Our combination is an empty string and our letter is A. So empty string plus A will be added to our temp array here, like so. And then we're going to move on to the next iteration, and our letter is going to be B because we're looping through each letter, and we're going to add combination plus B to temp. So let's do that like so. As you can see, we're pushing these inside of our temp array, and then we're going to get to our final round of this loop, and we're going to add C to our temp array here. And then we're going to be done with our loop because we just looped through each letter that we had in our letters. So let's do that. We're done with this loop and we're exiting the second loop, as you can see, and then our result is going to be equal to temp. So this value is going to get inside our result, like so. And then we're going to enter the next round, and our digit is going to be 3 because if you remember, we're looping through each digit, and in the previous round we were looping through 2 and now we're looping through 3. So let's get all of the letters that 3 represents, and that's D, E, F. So let's bring them here. Our letters are equal to D, E, F. Our temp is still going to be this empty array because we just looped through everything and it was redefined again. And then we're going to enter our second loop. And in our second loop, we're going to define our combination. So we're saying get the first item in our result and remove it. And that's going to be equal to combination. So the first item is A. So let's remove it. And that's going to be equal to combination. And we're going to loop through each letter that we have here. So let's do that. Our first letter is going to be D because we have D here. And this is our first character. We're going to add combination, which is A plus D to our temp. So let's do that. So that's AD. And then our next letter is going to be E. We're going to add A plus E to our temp because our combination is A and our current letter is E. So let's do that. And then the same thing for F. We're going to add A plus F to our temp. And this is it. We're done with this loop and we're going to exit it because we just looped through each letter that we have, and that was D, E, F. And when we reach here, we want to exit our loop, but the condition for our second loop here is that we're going to keep on looping until the result becomes empty, because if you remember, each time we're going to remove something from our result, and currently result is not empty. So we're just going to keep on looping until it becomes empty. So we're going to say remove the first item from our result, and that's going to be equal to combination. So let's do that. And that was B, and combination is now equal to B. And currently our result only has C in it because we just removed B from it, and our combination is equal to B now. Then we're going to enter our final loop, and we're going to say add combination plus letter to our temp. So we're going to loop through each letter that we have, and these are our letters. And we're going to add combination plus letter to our temp. So let's do that. Our letter is going to be D and our combination is B. So B plus D added to temp. So as you can see, we pushed it to our temp. Our next letter is going to be E, B plus E being pushed to temp, like so. And then F, B plus F being pushed into temp, like so. Now we're going to exit our final loop because we just looped through each letter that we had. So let's do that. We've exited our final loop and we want to exit our second loop. But as you remember, the condition for our second loop was that we're going to keep on looping until our result becomes empty. So we're going to repeat our loop and we're going to take the first result item and remove it. So that's C. Our combination is going to be equal to C, and then our result is going to be empty. We're going to enter our final loop again, and we're going to loop through each letter that we have here. So let's do that. Our combination is C and our letter is D. So C plus D will be added to temp, and then E, so C plus E will be pushed to temp, and then F, which is our final letter, C plus F, because our combination is C and our letter is F, will be pushed into temp, like so. We're going to exit our final loop, and then we want to exit our second loop, and as you can see, result is empty, so we can actually exit it, and then we're going to come to this line and it says result is equal to temp. So let's do that. Result is equal to temp, like so. After this line, we're going to go back to the beginning of our loop, but because we were looping through each digit that we had, and we've actually finished them because we only had 2 digits, we're going to break out of our loop and we're going to return our result, and this is our answer. And this is basically it. Now let's code this in the simplest way possible. Alrighty, so first of all, let's define our result variable, and that's going to be initialized to an array that has an empty string in it. And then we got to have our digit to letter object, and don't worry, I won't make you watch me type this out. I'll just copy paste it here, and as you can see, it's called digit map, and we're basically saying 2 is equal to ABC, just like we saw in this picture here, and 3 is equal to DEF, and so on and so forth. Then below it, we're going to define our first loop, and inside of this loop, we're going to loop through each digit that we have inside of our digits, like so. And this digits here was given to us by the question itself. It's basically the numbers that we're currently looping through. Inside of our for loop, we're going to grab our letters, so we're going to say let letters be equal to digit map of digit. And this is going to give us all the letters that each digit represent, as you can see. So for example, if our digit is 2, we're going to return ABC, and our letters is going to be equal to ABC. And then we're going to define our temp array, and that was equal to an empty array. Then below these, we're going to say while result.length is greater than 0. So as long as our result variable is not empty, we want to keep on looping, and we're going to have a variable called combination, and that's going to be equal to result.shift. And this is basically saying get the first item inside of our result and remove it, and that's going to be equal to our combination. Then below it, we're going to have our final loop for let letter of letters, meaning we're going to loop through each letter that we have. So inside of this loop, let's scroll down a little bit. We're going to say temp.push of combination plus letter. So we're basically adding our combination plus letter to our temp array that we defined here. After we've added all of our letters to our temp, and when our result variable is going to be empty, we're going to exit this while loop here, and we're going to say result is equal to temp. And then at the end, we're going to return our result. This is all of our code. Let me zoom out so we can actually see it, as you can see. But if we actually explore our second example, it says if our digits was literally empty, we only want to return an empty array. So let's do that. We're going to say if digits was equal to an empty string, return an empty array. And this is all of our code. Let's run it. Moment of truth. Let's see if we're going to pass our tests. Yep, all 3 of them are passed. And now let's submit it and see what's going to happen. Let's see if we're going to pass it. Moment of truth. Yep, that's awesome. Let's analyze our time complexity. And our time complexity is going to be O of 3 to the power of n multiplied by 4 to the power of m. And that's because the maximum length that we have here is 4 letters. As you can see, 7 and 9 are 4 letters, and we got to multiply the time complexity by the length of our digits, and that's why this is our time complexity. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep on coding.